Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick. Welcome to Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on Earth today, reclaiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations will speak to your spirituality, sensuality and soul. Listen to their stories, hear how they are in service to the world. Let their words in these conversations embolden and inspire you. My guest on this week's episode is Yvonne J. Douglas. She's a high priestess, shamanic practitioner, healer, sacred celebrant, and #1 best-selling author of Journey of a Starseed. During our conversation, Yvonne shares how true awakening cannot be achieved until we heal the trauma of racism, the expansive effect to doing the work, to liberate and to realign us with our true power. So as always, I begin by asking my guests, Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel you're most her?
When I'm doing tribal dancing, I definitely feel like that. It's so powerful. I go into a trance state, I connect with spirit and my ancestors, and I feel unstoppable. And that's definitely one of the times when I feel that way.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you. And great to have you back, Yvonne. I think we spoke like 2 years ago. I think it was 2019 or 2020, like something like just ahead of, current times and stuff.
Yeah.
But before we go deep into it, because I know we're going to have a good one, is if you can just introduce yourself, just say what work you've been doing and also how your work has changed, you feel, in the past 2 years in light of the shifts that we're going through.
Okay, so I'm Yvonne J. Douglas, but I'm otherwise known as the Starseed Alchemist. I am a shamanic practitioner, an author, a healer, and a counselor fundamentally. And I help people with the shadow work mainly. And I love doing it. It's very powerful. Some of it takes place as just normal counseling, but then I also do a lot of shamanic healing, soul retrievals, womb healings. I'm also a sacred celebrant now. So since we last spoke, I became a sacred celebrant. So I do ceremonies, naming ceremonies, hand fasting, which is like a wedding ceremony, and passing over ceremonies. So that's another lovely thing that I've added to my repertoire, and it's such an honor to do sacred ceremonies for people. Since the shift, my work has also shifted immensely. In 2020 and 2021, I had never been so busy with the work. Wow. So many people were reaching out for help to do with their shadow work. So much stuff was coming up for people. People were also experiencing spiritual phenomena and they didn't know what was going on for them. And so in the last, say 3 months, 3 or 4 months, it's calmed down again a little, which is, it's good for me because I get a little bit of I can breathe for a little while, but I do envisage it getting really busy again. It's been very busy, and I knew this time was going to come.
Yeah,
I knew this time, and I hung on in there with, just working for myself. It's been an amazing couple of years in terms of the work that I've been doing with clients, really seeing people shift and release and trust themselves more and connect with their souls more. It's such an honor to see that within people.
And you saying that as well is hopeful, because we can, if we're kind of focusing in the wrong direction, it could look like the world's going to hell, which, half of it might be. But then also there is, like you say, there is this real recognition of people kind of facing what comes up for them, and also knowing that there's something to be done, as opposed to kind of dumbing it down a little bit more. And I know
Absolutely.
that over those past couple of years as well, especially since April 2020, is really for me to just root down into what I wanted to do, is like let go of things that I was hanging on to and trying to impress, like people, situations where I wanted to show up and be all that, and it was just like a falsity, really. And it's also I've just kind of connected on a deeper level with people who I do know who were kind of there already, but then also a new wave of brothers and sisters from all over the world where we can just connect. For the most part, it's online at the moment, but the conversation just kind of starts on the level where it's not trying to win anything.
Yeah, it's not about what do you do, how much do you earn, what car do you drive, and all that shallow stuff. It's like you straight away have deep and meaningful conversations with people, and you know who those people are just from the first sentence, perhaps, and that's so refreshing as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And there's no barrier to conversation. You just kind of flow. And you're not, and even if you get to a point where like you're seeing kind of different sides of it, it's like you're allowing people to kind of see it from their perspective. Whereas it felt like before, the old world or existing in that world was about I'm right, I'm just going to keep like knocking you down until I'm right, as opposed to, okay, you're seeing it like that. Why are you seeing it like that? What's showing up for you like that? Why am I seeing it from this point? And allowing both things to exist. Absolutely. Or being able to see that maybe there's a part that you're not seeing and not feeling any shame about it. I think a lot of it came from, like, if someone told you something, you felt that you were wrong, and your ego got hurt, and you felt shame and guilt, and you felt stupid. And it's like, no, it's experience. It's like, experience just kind of brings you into a deeper level of knowledge, and you just get to know things a little bit more. And how has that spoken to any of your clients? Have you seen them see that as well?
Yeah, they're seeing things from a different perspective. And some of them are also ready to see things from a spiritual perspective, what their soul came here to do, the experiences that their soul chose, the family that their soul chose, so that they can have certain experiences, so that they can grow from that and learn from that. And it's when you can get to that level, it's very empowering and kind of liberating, because then you know that you haven't really suffered in vain. But at the end of the day, the human suffering, the human condition, we've all experienced it. And as humans, we've all got some sort of trauma. But those traumas are there for us to heal from, so that we do remember who we are as spirit beings. And when you can accept that, it makes a big difference, as opposed to fighting against it. And I know it can be difficult to get to that point, but it is what it is.
Right.
As hard as it is, it is what it is.
And I'm glad you landed there, because one of the reasons that I reached out to you is I was watching one of your recent lives on Instagram, and you just kind of mentioned we need to heal race. I can't even remember what your exact words were, but you'd said that. I'm like, I just want to, this is something that it's hard to have the conversation. It's hard to have the conversation with anybody, but it's especially hard to try and bring the conversation to people of color, to really look at that. And like you say, to see ourselves on a soul level, because there has been so much pain and trauma and injustice done in the name of race and the separation of race. But ultimately, if we remember that we're living in these times are all about illusion and psychological operations, and one of the longest running psychological operations and division programs has been the pitting of race, one against each other, man against woman. And it's so deep that, and for me, I think the crux of it came when I decided to really let it go. So, and it was never like I walked around with a chip on my shoulder about that. If anything, I was always kind of all encompassing. And I think I said to you yesterday, I went through a point where I thought, maybe I'm just not reading enough of the right books, you know, maybe I'm not kind of delving deeply into like Black culture and what I should know about this and that, all the rest of it. So when I went down that path, yes, I learnt a lot, but in learning that, there was kind of what came along with it was a lot of anger. And I get the anger from the pain, but the anger wasn't kind of bringing me out of it. It was keeping me stuck in a place that meant that I was triggered very easy. I was walking around hyper vigilant, looking for microaggressions and reasons to be the angry Black woman that everyone is telling you that you are, you know? And the final kind of turn for me of it, where I just decided I was going to just release it. Literally, I'm going to release this and see what happens, was when the whole George Floyd event happened. And when I was watching that, because at that point in time, I was really just kind of studying what was happening in America, and it was leading up to an election, and there was, you know, like left against right, blue against red, Democrat, Republic, or the Trump, Biden, all these kind of things. So they were setting up this kind of like left, right, left, right, left, right thing. And if you were following it though, but there was an undercurrent narrative of, obviously they had the virus story they could run with. They were like bringing in the vax kind of thing, and it was like pitting people against each other. But then you could see how something was going to happen. And there were like a couple of things. There was something that had happened in a New York park one week with a woman. Then there was the Biden talking to Charlemagne, look the God, is like, if you don't vote for me, you ain't Black situation, that kind of thing. And then I think a week later, it was the George Floyd happened. I'm like, something's wrong. Something this happened, like I'm like this just kind of happened almost on clockwork, because it was like you were like kind of tightening the screw and then you just let it go, and it went viral, and it went viral worldwide as well, because I was in London, but there were people that I know that were like kind of incensed and felt that they had to get involved in it, majority of them being white as well. And I remember having a conversation with a girl who like at the time was like 21, 22 years old. And she was like in mega fear about the whole virus thing. You know, I think like a couple of weeks before that, I'd been to a protest, and I was like, listen, I went to protest, like there were thousands of people a couple of weeks ago, I'm all right. And she was still under but you might be, what were they calling it? I can't remember the word now. They had this word where you might be you might be holding, you might have it underneath. Can you remember the word that they used? I can't. It was such a nonsense that I can't even.
Yeah, but you like even though you might not have the symptoms, you've still got the virus in your system or something like that.
Asymptomatic. So she's like, yeah, but you may be asymptomatic. I'm like, no, but you know, that aside, but she was like ready to go and risk her life to go and kind of be part of this thing that was happening in Hyde Park. And I'm like, well, why do you think that you have to go? She's like, I have to go, I have to do something, And I was like, but I'm a Black woman, I'm not going. Why do you feel you have to do something? And it was just seeing how that event that had happened over on the other side of the world was affecting everyone all over the world to get involved and feel that they had to go and kind of make a noise and build up this trauma and anger and angst and hate and shame and all of these kind of things. And then I was like, this isn't natural.
It's not natural. You know, it's like, this is why I always encourage people to really get in touch with their higher self and tune into their intuition, so that they can really tell for themselves what's true and what's not. And so when I didn't even hear about the other two incidents that you mentioned, I heard about the George Floyd thing. And my soul was like, what are they doing now? What are they engineering now? What are they planning now? What are they trying to do to the masses now? The George Floyd thing for me just didn't feel real. It felt very staged. I just didn't. I'm an empath, and I'm a very powerful empath, right? And I have no qualms about saying that. And I can feel the collective, and I can feel what is not true. And my energy, when I feel something, when I check it don't lie. Especially with something like that. And my emotions were just like a straight line. That's how my emotions were with the George Floyd. So I knew that wasn't real.
Yeah.
I knew it wasn't real. So what they'd done there was they set it up so that they would show us that there's a race war in the world. We've just gone through this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much fear. Let's keep the fear. Let's pump it up a bit more. Let's pump it up and let's see what we can do. Let's feed. Well, you know, the elite, the 1%, they feed off of our energy. They feed off of negative energy. That's how they survive on this planet.
Right.
And that's what they've done. And so they use racism as a weapon against humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, does it work when humanity takes the bait. When are humanity going to wake up to that?
You know, and that's what I always wonder. And it's a difficult it seems like it's almost like a difficult conversation to have, because every Black person's got a story of how they've encountered and the pain they've suffered, and this happened to them and they missed out on that, or someone said this. I've got plenty of those as well, and I'm not ignoring the fact that these things have happened.
Absolutely.
Or happened to like male members of my family. But like after that is when I really saw that where it just really went up into a peak, and in the same way, because I saw things happening week on week. Like those 3 events were like 3 of the main ones that were really pushed, and like something's going on, man. It's just like always like someone's like, you know, you're gonna stir the pot and then you're just gonna tip it over at the last minute, and it just went AWOL. And I remember looking online like, I'm going to just try and make sure that I can find out that this is, I was trying to prove it was real, but I was everywhere I was trying to look, I'm like, I need to see that this is real, because everything in my body is telling me that there's some kind of BS going on.
Right.
And I just kept looking and looking, going like just show me that what I'm thinking, like they could never go to this extent, really. But then, you know, once I realized they could have done that, I realized that it's been done before multiple times on, you know, on untold amounts of occasions. And then I just remember having like a meditation, a quiet moment where I just and it just came to me as like, what if it wasn't a thing? You know, and it was just like almost like a simple, what if we pulled out and decided that race wasn't a thing? It was like almost like kind of like goosebumps, like, oh my God. It was like, it's like, of course, it's not a thing, but it's been implanted systematically, implanted in everybody, so that every time you see that, the anger and the trauma and the wounding and the remembrance of all the instances where they've been hurt and shunned gets fired up in Black people. And then white people who feel afraid of kind of speaking out or wanting to say something just get into that kind of fright response or fawn response, where they're just kind of like, everyone's traumatized, and you just kind of pull that trauma again and again and again and again. And if you pull back and, like you say, go into like a higher space and observe it, you're like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense on any level. That's not to say that different cultures don't have their own kind of traditions and ways of being, but that just, you know, but that's what we share in terms of, you can go and you can learn from different people, but that doesn't, there's no reason to hate on it and put other people down. It's just been played that way. But it's hard to communicate that. Really hard to communicate that.
And not everybody's ready to hear it, especially if you're living in your traumas right now and you are still being triggered. And so the best thing to do is deal with the traumas, deal with the shadow work, deal with the ancestral, generational traumas that you carry in your DNA. Do the work. I just keep saying, do the work, do the work, do the work, and do it with love. And the more you heal all the traumas, the human conditioning, the ancestral stuff that you've come through with, you'll make space for your soul to expand, and your soul can see the higher perspective. And then you start to see that actually this race thing is what's keeping humanity separate. And it's keeping us separate, stopping us from coming together, joining together against the 1%. Who aren't necessarily human. There are different species that are living and sharing this planet with us, but they controlling us with the power that they have It's only 1% of them. Can you imagine if racism was eradicated, how humanity will come together and how we can get rid of the 1%?
Easy. And
Easy.
it's a snap decision. It's just you just going, oh my God. You know,
and when you said snap decision, that was like really powerful, because it's like snap out of the amnesia. Remember who you are. Remember who your soul is, what your soul is, where you come from. You're stardust. You're more powerful. You're bigger than this.
Yeah.
Black, white, Asian, all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like my greatest hope. But it's like, it hurts me to see people, you know, big people, like we used to call them, you know, people that got 20, 30 years on me still talking about the things that happened like 50, 60 years ago. And I get it, like it was hard. It can't have been easy to be in that. But the thing is to also, for me, is now when, if for any reason anyone could ever come try me with the race thing now, is like, understand that, you know, like, it's not, you call me black, whatever, what you want to see me as that, and you've decided that that's your position, you're the one that's under the mind control, not me, because I can see you as a person who's under some kind of spell. I know that I'm not that, you know, I know the color of my skin, I know my background, I know all of those kind of things, but it doesn't make me separate or better or worse than you. It's just where we're existing. And once you kind of heal with that and reconcile with the fact that you got played, and kind of like, you know, take on the shame of that as well, you know. And I think that's what's hard for people to kind of admit to, is that they got tricked, they got shamed, they got played, you know? And harder still as well, especially from the Black community, is that a lot of the time you get played by people that look like you, that have that are put in front of you in positions of power and influence as the first Black person to do, the first Black woman to do, you know. And the fact that if that always is the preface and the reason that someone is there, then there's all the more reason just to investigate where this person comes from and what their ends are, because it should just be there's someone in the place going to do the job, as opposed to they're the Black, they're the Black, they're the Black, because it just goes back to when I was younger, and whenever I go and like there'd be like a black people on TV, it was a massive thing. You get called from one room to the other. You know, it's like, come and have a look, there's someone Black on TV. It was a big old thing.
I remember those days. Excitement in the house. Yes.
It was like, right? It was never seen, but it was done so that, like, after a while, you know, like, okay, you can get Black people excited by just seeing a Black face. You can put, you know, and it has been done, and people will find out when they're ready, abject criminals in front of you to play you and lead you astray and do anything but the right thing for Black people.
Absolutely.
If anything, they will be up there, one, telling you how oppressed we all are, when they're living large.
Exactly. And this is the thing, you know, we have to also remember that we are living on a slave planet, and a lot of people have been enslaved, not just Black people, actually. And I know a lot of Black people might think, this is sacrilege, how could she say that as a Black person? But it's true. It's absolutely true. Do research. And it's the mental slavery that still keeps people in the shackles of the matrix.
Yeah.
And yes, you some people are still carrying trauma in their bodies that come from slavery. It's still in the DNA. You know, certain things like you might be walking down the street as a Black person, and you automatically, unconsciously move to the side for the white person to walk past. That is very subconsciously done. Yeah, both the Black and the white person will assume their position as master and need to come first, and the Black person will also subconsciously move out of the way. And that's something that I used to do back in the day, and I didn't realize I was doing it. But when I went on the healing journey, and I also had specific ancestral healing, and started feeling better about myself, gaining self-esteem, knowing that I've earned a right to be here on this planet as a Black person, that stopped happening. And in that transitionary period, I noticed I was bumping into a lot of white people. But now There's no bumping in because I've transitioned. I belong here. I have the right to be here. I am a person just as much as you are. And it's that's just one little thing that I noticed, that we can carry post-traumatic slave syndrome symptoms and we behave a certain way. But when you start doing that inner work, it all starts to heal. And it's the same with white people. If they start doing that inner work, they become more humble. They don't have this, because racism is also insecurity. It's insecurity. So when they get rid of that insecurity, and when you can start to come together in a space and feel comfortable, it makes such a difference. When I did my shamanic training, the majority of people in the training were white. And I was in that space as a Black woman. I felt no way.
Yeah.
Because these women were on a spiritual journey themselves. And the colour didn't get in the way. And this needs to be done big time, because I've been in some spaces where there is this unconscious, or the big elephant in the room, and there's this unconscious tug of war for power, perhaps. It's got to go. It's all got to go. We've all got to go on the journey and heal.
And I've been in all kinds of spaces where it's been apparent or where it's not been apparent, where, you know, I've realized that, you know, Carol's there as the token, and but the thing is, it's not the first thing that pops into my mind, because usually I go into these areas because there's information there, or there's an experience that I want to have. So that's what's leading me there, is because I know for many Black women in particular, they wouldn't even enter into spaces. I spent years going to yoga studios all over London, and I was pretty much always the only Black person in the room, you know what I mean? Like, you know, and I didn't have a problem with it because I was so interested in the whole thing about yoga. I went to India to like experience that, and you know, so I was always there as a person who I want to experience something, but I realize how it can be, and in certain spaces there are, and I can see how if you haven't got a core strength about you and you're walking in there and you're feeling a little bit like, oh God, like, I'm the only Black one in here, you know, like, you know, so that's running through the back of your head already. That's going to affect your energy, what you're giving out. That's going to affect your posture. It's going to affect the way that you kind of put out your hand and introduce yourself, as opposed to, hello, yeah, my name's Carol. Oh yeah, did you realize I was Black? Or I'm here, like, don't mind me. I'll just sit in the corner and not take it. And yeah. And
sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. People who apologize all the time. So it's like you're sorry for your existence. Come on now, do the healing work. Do the work.
Yeah, because the minute that you do that is like you just go and you don't even realize. And then when you encounter the bullshit that traumatized white women have against Black women, then you're able to see it for what it is. Because then I started to encounter, oh well, you don't really, you know, maybe you don't really know, because like I had someone ask me about the Black experience for myself as a woman in the UK, and I was saying, well, my life experience, I haven't experienced that much racism as compared to many others, in particular, maybe even Black men, just because my life has taken a different turn, and like there were things that needed to happen in the household. It didn't matter Black, white, orange, yellow. The trauma was in the household. It didn't matter. The world was out there. So I'm saying, well, you know, I don't really feel that, and I've never felt uncomfortable going into spaces where I've been the only person, because it's just, you know, I've been more curious than I've been cowed by the experience. And their response was, oh well, you know, maybe you don't really understand it because you're not in America, you know. So I'm trying to tell you a story about my experience, and yet then you're trying to kind of override my. So there's a lot of that going on as well, and then also so there's a lot of gaslighting and pushing back. So it's still got that kind of right to rule imprinted in their mind somehow, and also where there's been, I can't remember what the podcast was, but there was a Black woman being interviewed by two white women. I didn't really feel pity for anyone. I just felt uncomfortable watching the whole situation, because the Black woman had all the anger and the trauma. It's like, imagine you got bullied all your life as a child, and then one day you get to meet your bullies and you're just going to decide you're going to kick them in the nuts until they fall, right? And it was literally like that. It was just, she was coming at them, and it was all of her stuff coming out, and they were just there going, yeah. And it was a Zoom call. They weren't even in the same physical space. But to watch it, I'm like, this is not good on any side. I'm not for anybody here. Like, this just looks wrong on every level. It's like, you know, you've just kind of, you're trying to take it on board because you feel guilty about stuff. But as you know, as many as there were white slave owners, there were Black slave owners as well. There were. And these are the things that people don't want to really think about. But I think also you have to bear in mind, every few years, the slave narrative will get reinstituted into the consciousness, usually
of humanity.
Fiction, you know. So there was a period of time where we had Django, and we had 7 years, was it 12 years a slave?
12 years a slave.
And you kind of like, and then you push it up and you make stars of the people and you give them Oscars and everything like that, and everyone remembers, you know. And maybe there might be a little rerun of Roots on some like old network and everything, and everyone gets traumatized again.
And this is the thing, this traumatized energy, the 1% are feeding off, they're feeding off of it. And so this is why it's important for us to do the work, so that we're not traumatized when we watch these things, and we don't feel the need to watch them. That, you know, the trauma is real. It is real, and everybody's experience is real, and it should never be poo-pooed. Anybody's experience should never be poo-pooed. But we have to take responsibility. Everybody here on the planet should take responsibility to do what it is to make you feel good, to feel good in your body, to enjoy life, to live life, not to survive. Most people are just surviving right now. And sometimes because they're too lazy to take the responsibility to do the work. It takes courage. Yes, it does. It really does, because it can be very painful. But I always tell my clients, the pain that you're going to experience by looking at your past is nowhere near the pain of the experience itself.
Or if you try and live unchecked in that pain.
Absolutely. With all it's spilling out everywhere. and also we've got to think about our ancestors. The work that you do will help your ancestors. The ancestral continuum will heal through the work that you do, going backwards and going forwards. So how about that? How about that? How about doing our ancestors a favor and doing the work and not sitting in the problem? People like to sit in the problem. And I say this like they're sitting in the shit and they're just squelching in the shit, you know, being a victim. No, let's sit in the solution. Find the solution. Take responsibility.
And it's worth it as well. And like you say, and we can, and even if we kind of look at the position that we're in at this moment in time, it's a privilege that we've got actually to be able to look back and go, okay, we got played hard. Black, white, orange, green, everybody got played hard. We got pitted against each other. We're just under some crazy kind of mind control and spiritual suppression right now. But we're at a moment in time where the opportunity for us to kind of change this is imminent, is here, is now. And it's like either we can go under with it, or we can be the ones that are telling, you know, our descendants in like 10, 15 years, you're like, you know what, 2020, you know?
Yeah, man, we got through it because we did this and we did that. You know what? The times that we're living in now are such powerful times, and our soul chose to be here at this time because humanity is evolving at such a rate. If only you would allow the energies that are coming through to help you evolve at that rate.
Yeah.
And it's exciting.
Yeah. And it's so unknown as well, because you think, if I think back to even just the generation, like my matriarchal generation, they were so busy just kind of getting on with life, that they didn't even really have time to kind of just like, why, you know, like every now and again they'd be like, why God, why am I going through this? But it never got deeper than that. And we've got the opportunity of seeing how we can actually deal with what they were dealing with, and kind of, and like you say, release it for ourselves, but also for them, you know, and the onus and the opportunity and the responsibility is on us. You know, we can be champions for them in, you know, in so many different ways.
Absolutely. You know, when I look back on my mum, may she rest in peace, and my grandmother, who's still alive, when I look back on their lives, I just see where all that trauma came from, and how I also inherited it, and how they didn't have the courage to face it, but I did. And I have no regrets about speaking the truth about what I experienced, about unearthing family secrets. I'm very happy that I did it. Some of the family are still not happy because they're still carrying a lot of the shame, but that's their journey. That's their soul's journey. My soul's journey had a high purpose, and to unearth family secrets takes courage. But you know what? It's so worth it. It is so worth it to do this work, because your soul will thank you for it. Your soul, the growth, the expansion, it's amazing.
And you meet yourself, or like, and I can say to that, like, for the bit of work that I'm doing and continuing to do, because, you know, it will be until the last breath anyway. Exactly. So no, it's never going to be a thing, but it's just like noticing, like, you can wake up on a day-to-day basis and go, I feel different. Just on an everyday basis, just something feels a little bit looser, like you say, a little bit wider. It's not that I'm more important than anyone else. It's just like I'm stepping into me on a way that I never knew, you know. Like, it's like there is so much that can be done in terms of the experience that you have here, and especially in the times that we're in this world right now, where they are just like throwing untold amounts of like negativity and darkness on the people. And it's hard to, and you know, and sometimes it's hard to witness. It's frustrating to witness, and sometimes it's hard to witness when you see good people, good people, good, kind, compassionate people, but just being led astray and played like this. I mean, we're in Britain over this weekend, and if ever there was a loosh fest,
girl, I'm staying in my house.
It's been so interesting to watch, because if you thought pandemic was a psyop, boy, this is just like,
this is one major one.
It's because I can't even, like, I want to take it in because I want to remember it, so I want to be able to tell it, but I don't want to take it in so much that it's in.
It affects your energy. Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm just seeing some like levels of craziness and stuff like that, and people defending what they're seeing. You're like, you know, this isn't now, this situation, and we're obviously talking about the real situation here now.
Yes.
It's not even that we're talking about things that people have to go digging around on YouTube for to find out information. That we're talking about, this stuff is out there. It's being put in your face, and you're still giving your energy to people that are abjectly and like distinctly not for you.
Absolutely. And it's not just not for Black people. It's also, they're not for the white people. They're not for anybody. They're just for themselves and their little 1%. That's who they're for.
And more importantly, not for children.
Listen, that particular thing is you know, I saw a video on social of Andrew.
Yeah.
And how his hands went up his daughter's bottom or whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so you people have seen this, yet they still say nothing, okay? And I've also seen one where they've shunned Meghan, and I'm thinking, okay, so she doesn't abuse children, but she's shunned. And also that video of Andrew, do you think he did that on purpose so that the public could see? Because it is a theatre show. Have you ever thought about that? They're showing you who they are, yet still people are giving them all this energy. The ceremony on Monday, there's something happening at 2:22, I've heard. I don't know if that's when the procession starts or when that she's going to be buried or something. 2:22. look up what 222 means, angelic numbers. It means alignment. What are they aligning? What are they doing? Why is it 222? That's a very odd number, isn't it? A very odd number. Why isn't it not 2 o'clock or 2:30 or even 2:15?
Yeah. And even the numbers when things got announced, because over here, and I saw someone put it together, because as soon as it happens, I'm like, I need to like find my gematria people, because they're going to start breaking it down properly, because I know numbers on such a light level.
Yeah,
I know
me too.
people that like really kind of go into the numbers.
Right.
Because remember when Philip, when he passed, it was all the nines. It was all about nines and nines as completion. Then when this happened, you like look at it and go, well, in the UK it was the 8th of the 9th, but over, if you kind of line it up with Australia, it was 9/9 over there. And that's where it seems like the majority of her kind of like, because I don't know what's going on in Australia, but there's something about that space in the world that's got a number of levels of all kinds of stuff going on as well, you know. And it's just there is so much there. But when you're looking at how numbers line up and how things get announced and everything like that, it's like, you know, even on a basic level, if you just have like a surface knowledge of certain things and you start to see repeating patterns, there's only so many times you can see coincidences and shrug it off, you know. When you see, like you're saying, showing you who you are, the 2 clips that have been going around about Prince Charles, he can't even move something to the side of the desk. It's like pulling people over to like make a face, like move the thing. It's like, this is the person that you want to serve. Or when the ink goes on his hand and is like, you're like, he's losing it, and people are going, oh, you know, but he's grieving. Listen, when my mum died, I didn't go around treating people like shit because I was in.
Absolutely. Just because you're going through stuff, it doesn't mean you treat people badly. When you treat people badly because you're going through stuff, you're showing people who you truly are. And at the end of the day, his mother didn't just die.
Right.
His mother didn't just die. She died ages ago. They just chose to announce it at this time. And many people might think, oh, what is she talking about? Check with many psychics. We know she was dead a long time ago.
Long time.
It's a theatre. Everything they do, it's a theatre. They're showing us their show. When are we going to come out of their show and create our own show?
Yeah. Because and you know, now I'm seeing people that are lining up to go and lining up and standing in queue for like X amount of hours. They're spending more than a whole day of their life on their feet to go and walk past the coffin, and could be quite evenly empty as well. What are we doing? I'm
sure it is.
What, like, people, what are we doing though, you know? And it's like, if you don't understand where you're giving your energy to, then it's just going to be willy-nilly. And someone who understands energy and people who understand energy are going to siphon it off you and keep you enslaved. And that's what we're seeing.
That's what they're doing. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it again, part of the human condition is you don't think about yourself. You don't put yourself first. You know, you're told there's more giving, there's more happiness in giving than there is in receiving. We're not taught how to love ourselves. We're taught to be in subservitude to others. And this is where humanity have gone amok, because they don't look after themselves. The amount of time that they're going to give to the Queen, do they give that amount to themselves?
Right.
To themselves.
It's unbelievable. And but it gets played like, oh well, if you're not doing this, you're selfish. You're not doing this. Like, but you can't. It's always like,
be selfish.
Be selfish.
I tell my clients, be selfish for the first time in your life. Be selfish, especially the sensitive souls and the empaths. It's time to be selfish, because you've been giving and giving and giving and giving to everybody but yourself. You will end up with cancer, with all kinds of disease in the body, because you're holding on to resentment, anger, all sorts of things where you've just worn yourself out. For what? Self-love. Remember Whitney Houston said, the greatest love of all, learning to love yourself.
And then you can give to anyone, you don't run out.
Absolutely. You don't run out then.
Yeah.
But when you're giving from a half-empty cup and the dregs of the cup and whatnot, what are you really giving to people? Sorry, I feel like I'm getting into preachy mode now.
Sometimes, you know, like it needs a sermon, it needs a bang on the book, you know, for people to say, like, the time has come now. We can't keep out, we can't keep giving things out and like respecting people that don't know, they wouldn't know your name from another. Like, if we really understood, if we really found out what these people thought of us on an individual, they don't even think of us as individuals. We're just a mass of dirty people there to serve them and there to bow down
make
and
money for them.
Energy, the amount of money that is going to be spent on that one occasion. And there are people that are coming into winter are going to have to go, am I going to eat or am I going to put on the heater? So,
and that is inhumane.
Right.
That is not love for your fellow man. To be spending billions on that funeral, and people are not going to be able to put on their heating and heat their elderly parents or their young children, and making the decision between warmth and food. What kind of world are we living in? Right. This is supposed to be a first world country. It's not. So, the Queen, the royal family, the monarchy, they do not care about any of us. Mm. It's all a show. People say, "Oh yeah, but they gave to charity and they went to this and that." Oh, it's just a little token. Thanks for the money that you've been giving us.
Yeah, but and the thing is, if you look into the money that they may have given, if people are giving like $1 million or maybe like, you know, like percentages of millions, to us who are earning, you know, like maybe like, you know, tens of thousands per year, if you can just drop a few, like $500,000, $250,000 on something, it sounds a lot. But when you've got trillions of dollars, that's just, it's not even a penny. It doesn't even matter. And when it's not even coming from them anyway, it's just a token gesture. It's just a line in a newspaper. We don't even know that it happened for fact, you know. So, you know, it's a time for us, you know, to reclaim and to kind of pull the division and come back to who we are as sovereign, to get out of this.
Sovereign beings, absolutely. We need to start really relearning, re-educating ourselves around things, because actually there's so many things that legally is very unlawful. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they've created this legal system and made a mockery of us. Yeah. And they've stolen from us. It's actually voluntary to pay tax. Mm-hmm. It's voluntary. Not many people know this. And when you do say that to people, they find it's like they can't compute it.
Yeah. What's going to happen to the roads? Who's going to empty the bins?
Listen, anyway.
I know.
The bin men get paid to take they want our rubbish to recycle. Yeah. They get paid to take it.
It's a fallacy.
Yeah, we have to be, again, it's about taking responsibility. It's like growing up. Humans need to grow up. We need to start getting to a level where we can really communicate and be on levels with high dimensional beings. I hate to say this, but humans are like the low life of the spiritual world. And I don't mean that in a horrible way, because I'm having a human experience right now. But there's a lot of growing up for us to do. Our souls, we have mighty souls within this physical body, and we're limiting it so much because there's so much lessons to be learned and so much growth to be had.
And that's the power of our own power. We can convince ourselves we don't have any power and manifest having power, but we do.
But we do. We do. When we clear the space, clear out the trauma, we invite the soul to start really taking the reins and to be in charge, and we realize how powerful we are. I can sit here and say, I know I'm powerful. I know I'm a goddess. I don't believe it. I know it. How many people can say that? That's what I want. I want to be hearing that everywhere I go from other people. Not who am I? Oh, sorry. That's not who you are. That's not who you are. And when people do start to step into their power like that, the 1% ain't got a chance in do I say the word? Hell. They won't be able to survive.
Mm.
It's time for us to live.
Yeah.
Yeah, the times are changing. Yes, it's scary, but it's also very exciting.
And we could talk for so long on so many things as well, but I think like you say, it's exciting. It's scary times because it's new, but it's exciting because it's new. Like it's equally the same as well.
Yes.
So before you go, can you just let everyone know where to find you? If you've got anything coming up, any events, any programs, let us know.
Okay, so you can find me. My website is YvonneJDouglas.com. You could also Google me, Yvonne J. Douglas, and all my kind of socials will come up. I'm on Instagram as the Starseed Alchemist. I'm also on LinkedIn. I've got my sister circle that I'm running bi-monthly at the moment. If I get more numbers, I will increase that. I am planning a retreat abroad. Nice. I haven't released that much information about it at the moment, but I will be doing that with a couple of other sisters. And yeah, that's it at the moment. I'm also trying to organize like a tribal dance type event. And again, that will be out there for people. But if people want me on a one-to-one basis, they can find me, get in contact with me. I'll be happy to listen and see how I can help.
Perfect. Thank you so much for today. Honestly,
you're welcome.
More conversations and more voices coming out, and people just need to hear it till they're like, okay, all right, I'm going to believe in myself, you know.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. No, it's my pleasure, and thanks for having me. It's been lovely.
Anytime. Thank you, Yvonne, for joining me on this conversation today, and thank you for listening. You can find out more about me on my website, which is carolmaywhittick.com, CarolMaewhittick.com. I'm on Facebook under the same name, and on Instagram as Casmic, CAZMICK. Until the next episode, thank you for listening. Take care of yourself. Speak soon. Bye.